And there it is. I think it started. Okay, guys, welcome back to EPR. Today we're trying something different. We're trying a new show called EPHS Forum. And my colleagues, I got my colleagues involved and my boss, of course. So today we have special guests. Every single one is a special guest. None of us are students. We got Mr. Luis Huerta, principal for EPHS. We got Mr. Sergeant Leath. We got Mrs. Cathy Mauldin, one of my former teachers and retired teacher from Eagle Pass High. This is Lizzie Agosto. We'll be discussing a film called Crip Camp that came out on Netflix, and I thought it would be a wonderful experience if we just sat down, saw it together, and had a discussion, an excuse to also talk and hang out outside of the class, and also possibly see some stories beyond our realm of experience, and hopefully broaden our consciousness a bit. And as you can tell, a lot of us we differ in age and disciplines as well. So hopefully we all could bring something to the table. But before I get started, I wanted to remind everyone that we are hosting the Tejano Crossroads Media Festival this Friday, May 28th, not this Friday, but on May 28th, 2021 from 7:30 to 10:30 at the EPHS Fieldhouse parking lot. On that day, we will tell you what frequency to tune into. You are welcome to show up and tailgate and bring your own food. Of course, no smoking or drinking, but nothing but family fun. We will have Tejano music and student-produced films. Other than that, so let's go ahead and get started, shall we? I wanted to get started first, actually, with the end in mind. So I'll go ahead and read this. This was by Miss Corbett O'Toole, and this is actually towards the end of the movie, but I think it summarizes everything very well in the film, and also our initiative here with everyone here. So it says, and what the 504 sit-in did is it took all these people, deaf people, people with intellectual disabilities and learning disabilities, and blind people. I mean, there was really a wide range of people, and we were all going, quote, well, I've never heard your story before, but I believe you that that's your experience of being locked up in a mental ward. I believe you that that's your experience in special education. I believe you. We were witnessing, this is one of the most important parts, I feel, each other's truths, especially in today's day and age. We were giving each other I see you and I believe you. And so being separate for so long, guys, I thought it would be kind of fun to see a film and to discuss each other's experiences. Do you guys find it a little bit, I guess, harder now to at least see yourselves or have conversations online or otherwise without having a very strong moral bias for some reason? Does anyone have any experiences with that, or are y'all, I don't know. We could go over from that. Let's go forward. Let's move forward here. In the film, I really love this. It starts off with Camp Jeanette, and I didn't get the names of these two individuals, but I love that what Camp Jeanette stood for. And one of the kids in the wheelchair is interviewing another one in the wheelchair, and he's like, "Would you like to see handicapped people depicted as people?" And then the guy's like, "What?" And that whole act of those kids in the park, seeing each other, hanging out and playing baseballs, going swimming, going on a first date and stuff like that, I thought was an amazing thing to see and something I had never thought about. One of the main guys, the characters is, I don't know how you pronounce his name, Lebrecht. Talks about loving music, loving life, and wanting to be a part of the world. I think a lot of those kids in that film, let me go right over here. It was so funky. I didn't get her name, the writer. She said it was so funky. It was a utopia when there was no outside. But oops, I'm recording, guys. Sorry. But anyway, have y'all had that experience where you go into a club, like an organization, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts? I had the colloquium when I was at WIN. I don't know if Lizzie was there when I had that going. Providing those experiences for kids outside of school is It's very important. I know Sergeant Leath also does a tremendous job with his students, finding a place for them to develop and stuff like that. Any thoughts on that first scene on Camp Jeanette as a whole, guys?
Well, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Nice to see colleagues. Ms. Mauldin, not seeing you, ma'am. But it's just thank you, Mr. Sanchez, first of all, for inviting me. I know you mentioned mentioned it to me last week. I watched the movie over the weekend, and Mr. Sanchez and I were having a conversation right before we started this session, and the biggest thing that I got from it is just that it was nice seeing that the people that were going through that, teenagers and youngsters at that time, that when they worked together in the camp, it brought unity. They didn't see themselves as different. And like I mentioned to Mr. Sanchez, what I got from that beginning of the movie was that, we're not the problem. It's the normal people that see us differently. And it was nice that the film depicted an environment where they were safe, they were comfortable, they could be themselves, they weren't going to be judged. And as you mentioned right now, as we are going through this pandemic and these very challenging times, I think we need to have a lot more clubs and organizations and more involvement, where students are going to need a platform. They're going to be able to speak to one another. It doesn't even have to be about school, just having conversations like this. But yeah, that was one, I guess, of the most impactful scenes from the film when I was watching it. My wife was watching part of it, and there was some parts of it where she just couldn't watch. It was very, very sad, and it's just everything that they went through. But thank God we're in a better place, and obviously, like I told Mr. Sanchez, we still have long ways to go, and we still have to continue to work on doing different things for all of our students. But that was one of the things that I really enjoyed from the film at the beginning, and that's just my 2 cents. I can keep going, but
As far as the media tech class goes, I love bringing out the best in kids, and a lot of the times they don't see their sense of themselves reflected so well sometimes in the overarching society, because a lot of the kids that are attracted to the media tech class they're a little different. They see the world a little differently. They're very artistic. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. And sometimes when kids are given like the freedom, like, hey, I want you to create this kind of film, with these certain parameters, but it's not a multiple choice test. It's like you're going to have a little bit of freedom to choose. Sometimes they get a little bit frightened at first, and a lot of the first parts of the class are always kind of like getting them literally to be comfortable, to think outside the box, to think outside the multiple choice responses, and to loosen up a little bit and to believe in themselves. And I love that quote as well. It was from Larry Ellison, which was the director of the camp, which I thought was gosh, he was digging a few holes at first, and he's like, I thought it'd be funny if they tripped, and he was like in character or something like that. But later on, he's like, we realized that the problem did not exist with people with disabilities, because within that camp, they could see themselves, right? It says, Lebrecht, but at camp, everyone had something going on with their body, and it just wasn't a big deal. Let's go ahead and, oh, yes.
No, it was amazing to me how accepting the volunteers were, the camp counselors were, because prior to, that camp started in 1951, there could not have been very many places where young people, disabled people could have gone, period. And I thought it was wonderful to see the interaction between the volunteers, because as you said, it didn't matter what their bodies were doing. They were having a good time. They were just being teenagers. You just showed a picture of the young lady, not young throughout the film, but
Oh,
I think her
Judy.
name was Nancy, the cerebral palsy lady.
Oh, that was her name. Okay.
She was big time into exploring her sexuality, so to speak. But then teenagers, you know, when their hormones are kicking in that period of time, that's just natural, normal. And I think that's what they enjoyed. They were just doing natural, normal things, playing the music, probably. Well, actually, I read up on Gen Ed. They were smoking weed on a camp.
¿Qué carajos?
But then they had a bunch of hippies there at the camp. So I thought it was wonderful, the interaction between them, because it didn't seem to matter what their disability was. They were going to let them participate in whatever they wanted to.
Absolutely. You're right. And I wasn't going to bring that up, but since you did bring it up, Judy later on talks about that as well. And I hate to admit this because I feel I'm a very empathetic person, but I feel so separate and disconnected and alienated from one another that it never even occurred to me what she, that would be a want for them as well. It's like, well, they're humans. Hello. Like, it's obvious, but
it's like that able-bodied privilege that we have, that we don't consider that, these other kids, same age, same things that we're all going through, are going to have these same urges and feelings and want those experiences. It's just, I guess it's just a privilege that we just kind of have to like try to lift from ourselves to see that, hey, we're all people.
Absolutely. And Judy mentions it in the later, when they're already adults, and she's like, she's already in New York or something like that. And she refers to them as like, I'm not even referred to as I'm like asexual. They're like treated as such. And it's like, I've never thought about that. But okay, let's keep it going, guys. Judy Heumann, which after this movie has become my hero. Absolutely amazing individual. It says, she said, I felt like it was important to be inclusive because I didn't really have a lot of role models who had disabilities. It made people feel, so being inclusive, right, made people feel like they were more a part of what was happening. It says, it was more free and open, talking about the camp, and certainly I was experiencing in my day-to-day life at home. There were people that I met in those classes. This is when she was a kid, special education classes in the downstairs, because that's where they were relegated to back in the day, who then went to Camp Gen Ed together. Neil Jacobson, Steve Hoffman, Nancy Rosenblum. We would sit together at lunch and we would help put their sandwiches in their holders and stuff like that. And this is a part, she breaks down a little bit in her voice, and I hope I don't break down here a little bit, but it says, and I think we respected each other. And we felt that what we were saying was important. And I mean, in some ways, even when we were that young, and we knew that we were all being sidelined. We didn't want to sideline anybody, and we wanted to hear what everyone had to say, that we were listening. And so all of this, they're kind of cross-cutting from her as a child to her as a camp counselor, having those meets and having everyone, decide what food to eat and how to prepare it and stuff like that. And I think above all, I guess that's in a very weird way, she kind of inspired me to even get all of you guys together, because being together and communicating and being inclusive makes people feel like they're more a part of what is happening. We're not going to change anything right now. We're not going to enable any laws, but at least being listened to. And I mean, having all peoples from all walks of life sit together and see a film and discuss it, it feels great to be heard. It feels nice to be reflected within the community, and to be just heard. Any comments on that, on being heard and talking and socializing? Mr. Cruz?
Definitely agree.
Well, good evening to everyone, and very happy to share this forum with all of you, my colleagues. Ms. Mauldin, get to see her on Facebook every now and then, So what I wanted to add to what some of you have been stating is that, this group of people, and they've been denied, right, their constitutional rights. for quite some time, and they don't even know it, but they're at the center stage of bringing about transformational changes. And it is so important to like connect it to what's going on right now, right? That we have groups of people that may be oppressed, and right now, since it's a great opportunity to like you stated earlier, Mr. Sanchez, and it's to start a conversation and show our kiddos, our students, how to dialogue, and hopefully, even if you are liberal, even if you're conservative, whatever, there's always middle ground. As Ms. Agosto stated, if it's for the kids, it doesn't matter. We have to, as educators, be able to find solutions to these problems, if it's community problems or campus problems. But at some point, we need to sit down and have these discussions.
Fantastic. Ms. Agosto, you were going to say something?
I kind of lost my train of thought, but kind of doubling down on how, like, opening forums for our kids and being able to have some discussions or just hearing them out. You mentioned earlier how, we have this need to, like, it's an invaluable need to feel heard. And, it stems back, to that point from the film where, she would Judy would gather everybody to just vote on what you would eat. It's something so simple and so small, and it made a difference because they felt included in their community. And, that's something that we can kind of trail back to our profession, to our kids, to our students, trying to open a safe forum for a student to be able to speak and be heard. That would really, really just change a lot. Even if it's just hearing them out, it would change a lot.
Absolutely. And there's going to be an episode 2, and we talk about digital spaces, and I'm getting a different cast of characters to help us out with that one too. But absolutely, because right now, whether you believe it or not, pretty much every single social media platform, and definitely any legacy media, everything is being presented and designed for us to judge. Even when we post pictures about ourselves, it's a like or it's a dislike, it's an angry, it's a happy, and kids need a safe haven. And going back to what Mr. Cruz was saying, absolutely, we need them to. When I was a kid, I loved, and whether it was a flawed belief, but I loved feeling like the adults in my life, not only my parents, but my educators, the judicial system, the everything that involved the city of Eagle Pass, etc. I love believing that they had their stuff together. I know right now information travels ridiculously fast, and we're able to know more things that we can actually process. But just that feeling of safety, of consistency, was invaluable to me as far as reducing anxiety, reducing worry, and just like, oh, I could just be a kid. I don't have to worry about all this stuff. Like, I can just move forward. I don't know if someone raised their hand or if they had a question. I know, Sergeant Leath, you were gonna, okay, go for it.
All right, there we go. All right, I wanted to share an experience I had with my students Tuesday where my eyes were opened. This week, I'm always trying to engage and find a way to connect with our students. This week, we're going over the 7 habits of highly successful students. And so every day we go over 2 different topics, and their test at the end of the week is going to be, how can you take those habits and personalize them? So as I'm going over this, the first one was, waking up early with a purpose and all the things you can do when you wake up early. And the second is reading. How important is reading? And I go on my tangent, students don't read today, how, you need to read, and you need to read books and articles of purpose of, self-motivation. And then we started talking more about that. And then one of my young ladies said, well, what do you read, ma'am? And she goes, I read anime. And so I go into my tangent, what can you learn from anime? And she says, and none of my students have their cameras on. And she says, sir, let me turn on my camera. And so she turns her camera on. She's got this stack of anime books. Now, this is one of my straight A students, you know. I'm like, oh, wow. Wait. And then when she showed her stack of books, something amazing happened. Students started turning on their cameras. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And they started talking about the different characters, and yes, what I learned from this is to, you know, how to fight and how to win and how to, you know, shoot for my goals. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I've got to change my, you know, ideas on this. And I've got to figure out how I can bring anime into my discussions to bring the students together. But that was an eye opener for me. You know, so I had to backstep real quick, you know, because the excitement was instantaneous. Cameras started coming on, students started posting, you know, notes. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, so
absolutely.
So experience today, you know, and that made me think about the connection. You know, how can we reconnect with our kids? Just like in the camp that they had, the Crip Camp, you know, they found a way to connect to whereas everybody was a single unit. They all had things in common that they had to overcome as a unit.
Absolutely. Absolutely lovely. And
can I say something?
Mr. Cruz, pásales.
I'm just saying, Sergeant Leath, if you were able to bring disco into your classroom, sir, you should be able to bring anime into your classroom.
Well, I know disco. I know nothing about anime, so I'm gonna have to get educated. You know, and one of the students, I don't know if you know it, they called me a weeb, so I got to look that up. I don't know what that is.
Oh no, Lizzie looks like she knows.
You know,
maybe we should text it to us later. I don't know what that means either, but maybe it's not.
It's not something bad.
Okay.
It's funny.
Okay. Well, and here's where I'm going with all of this. Again, media is powerful. Stories are powerful. Whatever can, sometimes a technical document, even us as adults, you know, this bullets and all this and all these sections, and, you know, it's hard to grab our attention, and attention is a valuable commodity these days. And sometimes you can hammer out very dense, complicated topics through those stories, through anime, through film, through books, through comic books. And that you just cannot get in a lecture, in a 1 hour lecture. And so we as a community, as an institution, an educational institution, have to find a way to accelerate our modifications for our kids to better serve them. Okay, let's keep it moving, shall we? I love this one. She's, like I said, my hero. So Ms. Mauldin, you said her name was Nancy. So Nancy said some cool stuff. I thought this was interesting too. Nancy said, at home, some people had a hierarchy of disabilities. The polios were on top because they looked more normal, and the CPs, which stands for cerebral palsy, were at the bottom. But at Jeanette, this is my absolute favorite part. You were just a kid. Again, no judgment, no nothing. It seems like it doesn't matter how you look, where you came from, how much money you make. I think it's a human thing. Like, we really want to distinguish ourselves. But I love, as Sergeant Leath said, at Jeanette, they were one. They were a unit, singular, all together. And most importantly, they were kids. You know, it could be any one of our own kids if we, you know, have them. The world is challenging enough, but I just fell in love with the concept of a place that accepted kids for just being kids. And at school, it's hard to do that. I know we got a lot of things that we got to do, but every now and then there are those little moments where you can allow them to be that, and give them the flexibility to be that. Oh, I thought this was funny. This was actually a funny thing, but the words that this young man used, I can't remember his name. There was like a crabs outbreak, and they were doing a quarantining afterwards. And one of the young men was like, yeah, we are all in the process of dehumanization. And, and I see ourselves a little bit. And gosh, I mean, if you look at Texas, right, we went through, and specifically Eagle Pass, when we went #1, baby, on the New York Times, right, on the rates. Dehumanization meaning like away from people, not socializing, not smiling, well, not even be able to see one another smiles. But then when Snowvid happened, or Snowpocalypse, right? We added the dehumanizing efforts a little bit more with the snow buckets for toilet water, right? So things change real fast apparently for human beings. Let's see here, Judy Heumann at Camp Jened. This is something else I'd love to hear y'all's perspective. Camp Jened, a personal assistance was built into all of our lives who needed help. There were people there that would help me get dressed and undressed and go to the bathroom and to the shower and get in and out of the pool. In some ways, it was also the beginning of my experiencing what it would be like to have someone other than my mother or father do all those things for me. And in campus, when we work with those kids, and I love teaching what I teach right now because I get to see them develop throughout the years. I can honestly say I care about those kids as if they were my own. And we do these socials. We've gone to the bowling alley. We take them, and I take my kids to the Sonic so they could play volleyball, and they do these different activities. And I think it's a really wonderful thing where people can experience, a good environment, a good healthy culture and environment where they are cared for just for the sake of being them, even though they're not your parents. And then in this case, it's like they were built into their disabilities, but as a community, I would love to see one day, I don't know, helping those that have already served, all the older population, maybe with the yards and stuff like that, and being connected and helping each other out. Any thoughts on this phrase right there, or on this in general? No?
I'll say something. There was this phrase, and I can't remember who said it, but he said, there's nothing to strive for if it doesn't exist.
If you're not aware it exists.
Yeah. So
yes,
this group of people, of human beings, for the first time, I think, and he said, I lived in a world that was not built for me.
Yes.
And the camp, for the first time, they do get a sense of independence. They do get a sense of adulting a little bit. And but more than anything, so we teach our children, our school children, about inclusion. But it's so important that back then, particularly this group of people lived in a world of exclusion. And so I just thought that, I'm glad that you mentioned that our kids have been through a pandemic and they've been through a winter storm. And hopefully something like this is going to ring a bell, and maybe they can empathize a little bit better as to what we've just gone through.
Ms. Mauldin?
Well, I was wondering if anyone knew historically, perhaps Mr. Huerta would know, when students were allowed to be included onto campuses. When did we move them out of Webster? Because that's where they used to be.
I'll say, according to the notes, the 1977, let's see.
No.
1990. See, the Capitol crawl was in 1990. And George Bush said, let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down. That was in 1990 when they were enforcing the law and going all in.
Yes, but we did not start
then,
Section 504 until
immediately.
possibly 2000.
Whoa, a whole decade.
Well, I was reading an article because I spent quite a bit of time trying to find out when Section 504 was mandated in Texas, because I was in the very first group to be sent off to Region 20 to be trained on 504. And it was triggered by the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, in 1990. But I read an article that was saying that they didn't really impact schools. I want to say 2000. The article came out in 2001. And I couldn't remember when I was sent off for training, but we didn't even do what we know of as 504 today until probably around 2000. But I was wondering, when did we take the kids out of Webster and put them into the schools? The seriously physically and mentally disabled students.
And I don't know, Ms. Mauldin, I started at Eagle Pass High School in 2005 as a teacher, and I know I was there as a substitute teacher with Ms. Contreras when she was the principal back in 2002, 2003. But I think in 05, when I started, I think we already had our unit at the high school. I know when we built the new wing and C wing, obviously it provided way better facilities than what we had in the past. But I think back in 05, at least when I started, when I remember, if I remember correctly, we used to have, if you remember, Ms. Mauldin, the portables outside by G wing.
Yes.
That's where we had the unit, I believe, right on the back of G wing, and then we transitioned to C wing. But I don't have an exact date. I will find out. Now you got me thinking as to when they got moved from Webster into the school setting.
Okay, so I obviously don't know exactly when, but I do know from personal experience. My mom worked as a special education aide at Radar Elementary when I was born. And she had students, you know, who had Down syndrome, and they weren't in the regular classroom, but they were on the elementary campus. Yeah. So this is back in at least 90, 91 to about 93 when she left, that they, you know, students with disabilities were on, you know, the general population campuses. But this is just, again, my personal experience, because I do remember going to Radar and meeting her students.
And the kids.
Yeah.
Well, we also need to remember to distinguish between what the disabled students that we now have on our campuses, possibly since 1990, the American Disabilities Act, and what we refer to as 504.
Yeah, because I know that they're, you know, not different, but it's a separate thing. Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to do, but you know, this, you know, you guys have to remember, I'm kind of trying to get you guys onto a show and record it and have a forum and discussion. And there's nothing really to refer to. So now that I have you guys in, God willing, if we're able to produce it and share it and publish it and stuff like that, I plan on using this for clout, because I wanted to have he might have had the answer, Mr. Zavala, on as well. And I talked to him, but he was still a little lukewarm. He was like, I don't know, you know, so it's like, okay, that's fine. I would like to continue having different discussions and stuff like that, but this is the basis for that. And again, awareness more than anything is important. And also seeing films like this gets you to see, like, okay, because later on we're going to find out about the law passing, and then later on you'll find out that a law can get passed and not enforced, and then later on you find out that it's like it needs a little bit of that extra special sauce to really get it enforced, and then by the time that it trickles down to the states, it's even more hard, it's even more challenging. Yes, sir, Mr. Huerta.
Well, I mean, going back to the phrase that Mr. Cruz mentioned about going back to the movie and the scene where the kids, they never saw all the potential, all the opportunities that was out there for them because of the way they were secluded. When I saw that in the movie, you know, I thought about school and what we experience as educators and in the classroom. And you guys know that we have students from very different backgrounds, very different socioeconomic situations. And the way I was able to connect it is that many times our own students in the classrooms, depending on the backgrounds and the upbringings, they have a tunnel vision because sadly they had very terrific or they had very difficult upbringing. So they only see one way. You know, if the parents were in prison, or if the parents were in drugs, or if the parents were in different hardships, they don't see a way out. And as like you mentioned, Mr. Sanchez, as I think as educators and reflecting on the movie, it's our job to provide our students with the different opportunities, to have conversations with them, to explain to them that there's so many different options out there, and we're here to help you out. But I just made that connection with the movie when I was watching it, and it's something that as educators we gotta keep doing and providing that avenue to our students so they can break those chains of being tied down to very difficult hardships.
Absolutely, Sergeant Lee.
Yes, and let me add on to that, and and you're absolutely right, Mr. Huerta. Our students, we have different walks of life, and a lot of them they feel trapped or they don't know a way out. And what I'm trying to get my students to do is my phrase now is be curious. A lot of our students have no ideas what they want to do in their future. I always say high school, adulthood, you're a few steps away. So I'm trying to get them to be curious so they can kind of figure out what they want to do. If you're not curious, you're not going to be adventurous to, figure it out.
Ms. Agosto?
I just kind of want to add on to the outreach, expanding our students' horizons. One of my absolute favorite projects I did as a high school student, and I didn't forget about this, Ms. Mauldin, as an NHS student, was lunch buddies. As NHS students, we it was every other Monday. We would get paired up with a student from the life skills unit, and obviously there are students that didn't have the verbal abilities. Obviously they took that into consideration, but we would get paired up with a student and we would eat lunch with them. But one of the things that I remember, doing, at least with my friends, and I will never forget Ms. Mauldin, like telling us before and warning us before, this isn't a program where you eat away. The point is to include these students in normal everyday interactions with kids that are their age. And it was super fun. I loved lunch buddies because I remember my buddy was always a trip. She was hilarious. And it was so nice to be able to just get to know her. And my friends, most of my friends were in NHS as well. And those of them that weren't were super open and inclusive. And we would sit right in the middle and just try our best to kind of integrate a conversation. Obviously, some kids, and this can apply to any student, is more shy than another, but something like even as small and simple as that. This was 30 minutes every other Monday that we were able to just include these students into what is, I don't want to say normal, but I'll call it general pop. The general population of students was just I still remember it. And, I graduated from high school, not that long ago, but 10 years ago. And it was impactful then. And I think about that now. And something I've thought about now since working at high school as well.
Absolutely. I can see that. Huh?
They expanded that, Lizzie. They were doing it every Monday.
Wow.
That's cool. So much. Which is one of my favorite things.
Yeah, but it's so sad now with the pandemic. That they were making with the life skills kids is gone.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I was going to mention. And again, this is not no judgment call or anything like that. Again, this is all from a neutral place and a place of wanting to build and grow and just observe. I do see a lot of kids experiencing the pandemic very differently, and a lot of those kids are. And it's no judgment on any structural hierarchy or anyone's choices to do this. And I understand everything is this year is very different. But being able to play a sport and connect with other kids safely, CDC-wise and whatever, it's a humongous privilege that was really allotted to a very small group of kids. I think that was a very beneficial thing, but I do see it does not spread through everyone, and one of the reasons I felt like, man, we got to do something that tries to include everyone in a very safe fashion, and we've had to jump over so many hoops, understandably so. But if I was growing up right now, I would have been one of those kids that would have not had the chance to be in those sports, that would have been home alone, that would have been losing my mind, as I sometimes do right now, to no fault of my own and to no fault of my parents. It's just what life is. But I like these conversations because I hope that we all think about as many people as possible and to try to serve the multiple needs. And there are many. And it is a juggling act. And I am certain, Mr. Huerta, you have your hands full all the time. So again, thank you for showing up and being a part of this, and more importantly, for listening to things that we feel are important. But I can't imagine what you must be going through right now as our leader to have to make all those calls, because safety, social wellness, mental being, mental fitness is they're all encompassing, they're all overarched. So. But anyway, I love that we're having this discussion. Let's go ahead and keep it moving, shall we? But yeah, I'm sorry. Mr. Cruz, that line got me too. The one about we saw at camp was that our lives could be better. And the fact is, if you don't have anything to strive for, you don't know that it exists. Let's see here. We kept, and here we go. One last thing before we go forward to the next slide. It says we kept having these discussions, and it was allowing us to recognize that we needed to look at ways of doing things together, not just at camp, but after camp. I think that's one of the most monumental things, because ultimately you get to see them still stay connected in a healthy fashion and work together and maintain their attention on difficult topics and be able to make a difference. Woodyard. Why did I put this? Okay, so it says we were brothers and sisters there. Oh, yeah. This man, he was one of the guys, one of the counselors. He says, I took ideas back home that my community was unfamiliar with. I wore tie-dye shirts. My afro had grown really, really out, and it was out like this. I burned incense. Let's see. Yeah, I'll keep it at that. One of the things we've had an amazing opportunity with the Career Technology Education Department, of course, with the permissions of EPHS, we've had the chance to go to different to the University of over there in Alpine, so Ross State University, and see the culture, see the art, give a presentation to the professors over there, the communications department, and our kids got to experience the murals over there and the culture, and they got to know what it was like to talk to educated adults. There were superintendents in there from Marfa, and we had a conversation about that, where it's like these opportunities, whether it's football, whether it's band, whether it's doing a presentation at a university, whether it's UIL, all these experiences, like Mr. Huerta mentioned earlier, these clubs and these opportunities provide a different way of seeing the world, and it changes people. Real quick shout out to Mr. Rest in peace, Mr. Martinez, the art teacher, who made a humongous impact on my life. And I literally, if you all haven't seen my backdrop over there on campus, I have this big old mural inspired by him, because he helped me change the way I see the world. Any insights on that? The other thing is we do have a lot of people here that moved into Eagle Pass and have made it their home. Oh, Mario, Mr. Cruz. Yes, sir.
Well, the other observation that I made about this is that, there's going to be a huge movement. However, some of these young people, they've been discriminated because they're disabled. Some of them because they're a minority. Some of them because they're gay or lesbian. Some of them because they're poor, right? So some of them, they have it really, really tough, because not only do they face the challenges of being, handicapped or disabled, but they have all these other obstacles that they have to go through. And so that's why the ADA, or later on the Civil Rights Act, is going to bring a breath of fresh air to all these folks, because now they're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. And coincidentally, it's how they, they ended up at Woodstock. And, I thought that was like the perfect storm, like it was the epitome of, what the other groups were fighting against, the counterculture. And, they were protesting the Vietnam War. But still here, even these folks who don't have many, who are not very resourceful, they're still able to get their message out.
Absolutely. Talk about Judy Heumann. She, where is it? The camp, rehabilitation. There's a part where they had been trying to doing some marches and stuff like that, and it wasn't so impactful. Let's see, okay, but then, just like you mentioned, that was when the wars were going on, and one of them comes back. A lot of them come back disabled and stuff like that, injured, and oh gosh, I wish I knew where it was. Demonstration. Oh, here we go. In the spring of 1973. We were going to have another demonstration. The bottom line was we were a small group of disabled people, and we were getting very little coverage on the media, just like you were mentioning, at the national level, because we didn't have disabled veterans up until that point. And that was, the time of the Vietnam War. We wanted to be able to mobilize disabled individuals in DC to express the feelings of the disabled community around the United States. And in that unity, we do have strength, and that we must expand the pie that we are fighting from, so that we don't have to fight each other against division. She's more about unity, but that we can all get our adequate services. So I think she's a brilliant lady, and I love how things kind of just teamed up, because it's like, what are you going to deny someone who served their rights, the civil rights? But yeah, absolutely, sir. They teamed up, and I think they packed a punch in that case. Let's see here. Status quo needed to be for camp. Oh, bueno. Real quick, and this is just a side, because we were talking about the Civil Rights Acts of the 60s. Civil, keyword civil, or civics, right? And I remember hearing that there were civics courses once upon a time. And she mentioned that at that point she was able to not only to hold the demonstration, but to sustain it. And they sustained it for over 22 days or something like that. I just have a nagging suspicion. Does anyone know why? And I'm just spitballing here, and I'm asking you guys, why or how long have civics courses not existed? Does anyone know? Oh, Sergeant Leath, did you raise your hand? Or was that from? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. No? Okay.
No idea. No.
I'm really asking because I don't know the answer, but I have a nagging suspicion that that after all the ruckus in the 60s, after all these laws were enacted and all these rights were given to these people and to of all shades and sizes and colors and abilities, it almost feels like we maintained government, we maintained economics, we maintained history, but the civics courses, how to be a citizen, how to engage, in a proper fashion. I wonder if that was purposefully withdrawn from the from the curricula, so we can have less trouble down the line. I don't know. That's me spitballing. We don't have to stick on that.
In reference to Texas, I because I had civics in Oklahoma, but in reference to Texas, I had civics in junior high, and here in Texas, you offered something else in junior high. You offered Texas history and the first half of U.S. history. So there wasn't a place for it, so to speak, in the social studies curriculum, particularly when they went to geography.
Yes.
Offered geography. That took away something else. So I'm assuming that here in Texas, they were expecting it to be handled in the government classes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know when or if Texas had it or when they gave it up.
Texas.
I did notice when I moved here from Oklahoma that it was not being offered in the late 70s. Texas history and U.S. history were being offered. So.
And that's one of the beauties. Thank you, Ms. Mauldin, for the conversation right now, because I mentioned it earlier. I think in this conversation right now, in this whole forum, only one of us was here, and their parents were already from here, I believe. I think everyone else moved here themselves, or their parents moved here. I know that was the case for me. Mr. Cruz, were your parents from Eagle Pass already? Or because I was thinking it was you'd be the only one that's actually, or you guys moved here as well?
Came from
Oh, you guys
Mexico.
Gosh.
My mom was born here. She was born down like William Street. She was born and raised in Eagle Pass. My dad was I don't know, the I guess migrant. He was born in Puerto Rico. Moved down. Yeah. But my mom was born and raised here, graduated from Eagle Pass High School, went to San Luis Elementary, Robert E. Lee, Glass, or EPJ. That used to be Glass.
And I like that perspective, because it a lot of people from Eagle Pass don't know how good it is until someone else until you have a conversation with someone else who's moved here. I've had a couple conversations with people that moved here from El Paso, from Houston, San Antonio, and I'm always surprised, like, and you didn't move back? But you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? You had to live somewhere else. And so Mrs.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, Miss Mauldin and Sergeant Leath, and like they can see us slightly better, and not different or bad or worse. It's just like they see things that we do not know, because how would you know otherwise? You know what I mean? So it's kind of a metaphysical or epistemic type of thing. Let's keep it going, shall we? Let's see, here's the demonstration. LaBerge, eventually Nixon caved in to all the political pressure. He signs the rehab bill. So I think that's amazing, right? So it's like, okay, in my book, it's like, that would have been like, okay, if I helped be a part of that, would have thought mission accomplished. But I didn't know that you have to have them enforce it. And so they kept tabs on that. Miss O'Toole says when the whole gang from, so this is when they were already in California, I believe, from with the Camp Jeanette kids started to come, they were like this. And so she crosses her fingers like that, right? Like, so if you socialize with one, like, hey, you're going to hang out on Friday night. Yes, but it always meant one of those people, if not five, were always going to be there. I think that's great. I think we're kind of missing that in today's day and age. Oh, yes. Who was that? Oh, I thought I heard someone, or did they type? I thought I heard the little message. Be there. Okay, so Judy Heumann. What we were hearing is that, and I love the attention to detail Miss Judy Heumann had. What we were hearing was that the lobbyists were coming in, wanting to make changes in the regulations. Schools and universities and even hospitals didn't want to have to spend the money to make their buildings accessible. So we believe that there was like an imperative to act quickly. Who was this one? Oh yeah, this was a reporter, the Texas girl who had gotten in the accident and then became paralyzed from the waist down. She says, I didn't even know that there was a national movement, and I didn't know that what 504 was until I was 22, right out of college, when I was on my way home and a truck ran me off the road, and I became paraplegic. So there's a lot to extract from here. One is, even though we take government and economics, and I know we teach it to the T, there's a lot of forces at hand. We live in a democracy, right? We elect officials and they pass laws, but there are forces, and somehow lobbying is legal, and people can pay money to have certain people vote yay or nay in certain ways. And so I think it's, especially right now, as we move forward, as we accelerate into the future, and as technology continues to accelerate, it's very important for us to find ways to not trade doing what's convenient for doing what's right. And that's hard. And I don't know that much about government and laws and all that stuff, but films like this have really taught me, like, oh, there's so much to it. You really have to act, and you have to be mindful, and you have to know who's pulling the strings, right? You got to follow the money, I guess. Anyone have any comments on that? Yes.
I was struck by Judy's making the connection between how long it took for desegregation in 54 to schools being fully integrated. I used to point out in my classes that my high school wasn't integrated until 68, 69, as was Del Rio, all because of the military saying that they had to integrate, but they waited, 15 years before they did it. And they had passed this 504 regulation that said if an entity received federal funds, then they had to make everything accessible, but they were down to moving through the 70s and nothing was being done. And it took, again, the American Disabilities Act in 1990 to try and push them into the schools, to really make the schools available. And so it does, like you say, it takes time because you're having to go down into every community, into every school district. And there's a lot of resistance over that. So I would like to ask the group, how long do you think it's going to be on the fight for, I'm probably going to say this wrong, LGBTQ, and particularly the latest one on transgender issue here in Texas and athletics, or the law passed in Arkansas that medical people can now deny medical access to transgender people? It passed in Arkansas. How long do you think that fight's going to be? I mean, it's been going through the Supreme Court and all of that, and yet we're still state by state, community by community, still going through that.
Ms. Agosto?
I think I was thinking about that throughout the entire film, that tie with it's, this generation's, I don't want to call it plight, but, social issue and political issue as well, because that's what, the issues were with people with disabilities. But it's going to take, I feel like it might take a while because this is something that has been dragged out. We did have the federal legalization of same-sex marriage in, 2015, I believe, 2013, 2015. That was fairly recent. And, we did see that resistance, that immediate resistance that states wanted to block. We had Justices of the Peace that wanted to block that as well. But it was something, and I believe her name was Denise, one of the individuals with cerebral palsy, that mentioned that a law is one thing, but it's the attitude, it's society's perspective or perception of people that has to change. And you can pass all the laws you want, but until people, their attitudes change, then, we won't see that actual change. And I mean, I've kind of tying into this topic, the topic of the film, we have seen that change bit by bit amongst our students, where they no longer say the R word and they judge other students that use it. Mm-hmm. That small change that I've noticed among our students. But I personally think it might just, maybe even in our, especially in our home state, it might take a while for those attitudes to change and for there to be real systemic societal acceptance and change in schools, in public in general. I'm a little bit of a pessimist, so unfortunately.
Well, all of you are still in school. I did work last year before the pandemic, but do you have the thing on the pronouns at EPHS? Is that an issue? Does it come up?
Not at all, ma'am. Whenever we had a student, and I actually had a meeting with my counselor, with my head counselor a while back at the beginning of the year. Whenever a student has that request about being called by a specific pronoun, we're gonna respect what they, what they prefer to be adhered by. So, I mean, it hasn't been an issue to us, but we have been very understanding about the different situations that each individual is going through.
I'm sorry again. I've only had a few kids disclose to me their preferred pronouns, and I make my effort to make sure I remember, because that's the bare minimum. It's doing the bare minimum of just respecting another person's identity. And, all we can do is try and work together to make each other feel as included as possible.
Absolutely. I really like that phrase. Oh, Sergeant Leath.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed, especially in my student populace, they're very accepting.
Yes.
I haven't seen any problems whatsoever. So I'm very impressed with how accepting our students are.
Do you think it's a generational issue then? My generation?
Like the older generations, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a lot of the very conservative generations that are maybe in those very important political positions that, it's hard sometimes to move on and understand the changes that are happening in society. But I can speak on what I've seen, not just as a principal, as a teacher, as a sponsor at Eagle Pass High School. And even this past few years, I don't remember seeing or having issues with students being mistreated or singled out or because of whatever orientation.
It's been very fluid. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
When I got, here it's totally different. One thing I do enjoy about Eagle Pass, it's a different culture. People are much more friendly here, so it's a total different culture. And I think that has something to do with it also.
I love that.
And I'll just interject here, and this is not to erase, this has just been our experience. I haven't personally seen it. Their students haven't personally disclosed to me, but this is not to negate that maybe it does happen, but it isn't as widespread as at least when I was in high school, or as publicized. But it's important to make sure that our students feel comfortable with disclosing any type of bullying or derogatory comments that may have been directed at them. But again, not to negate it doesn't happen anymore, because unfortunately it probably does. But at least it's been our sphere of experience that I haven't seen it in my classroom. If it happened and I missed it, it's something I need to work on personally as an educator, to be more aware of my surroundings and it's the interactions between our kids. But I have noticed a trend of more, people refrain a lot more than they did when I was in school, for sure.
I think, Mr. and everyone, again, from what I've seen, it goes back to, I think it's a team effort. I think teachers educating their students, sharing those personal stories, sharing those experiences, and we as educators, we teach and we explain to our students through our informal conversations that it's okay to have different beliefs. It's okay to have different ideals. It's okay if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, if you like girls, if you like guys. And I think as a society and as a culture in Eagle Pass, at least what I've seen at the high school, our teachers, Ms. Agosto, Mr. Cruz, Ms. Mauldin, myself, Sergeant Leath, all of I think the majority of our staff members do a heck of a job showing our students that we're equal, we're the same, and we just got to respect one another. As an assistant principal, going back to when I will deal with discipline, I don't recall specific cases dealing with singling out a student because of that. But I think the district also has gone in a very positive way, try to bring awareness and education. A few years back, we started on the district's webpage where we have the self-harm, where bullying, anti-bullying, where anyone, you don't have to be a student, you don't have to be going through it, but if you see it, you report it, and you don't even have to give us your name. And within 24 hours as a principal, I get a report, we take action, we take care of it. We have another program that the district purchased this year to try to prevent bullying and different situations from taking place. So I think we are heading definitely in the right direction. Is just continuing to pick up the pieces and build on what the pandemic has created this past year and a half, which is a lot of, it's going to be a lot of rebuilding with our students and showing them that we're here for them and rebuilding that trust and building those relationships. Right now, it's very nice. And I think we can probably stay here till 10, Mr. Sanchez, because we don't really see a lot of our colleagues and have conversations.
Yeah.
And I think this is what's missing from remote instruction, that yes, we teach TEKS and we teach, world geography and pre-AP, and history and math and science. But the one thing that we have been missing due to the pandemic is the personal connections that as educators we're able to build with our students on a daily basis when they walk to a room, where they walk in and we see something in their face and we know, Mijo, are you okay? Is everything okay? And all those components is what builds the strong connections as educators and what motivates our students to do those amazing projects and perform well on the exams and different curriculum that we do. So I am working as one of my projects, Mr. Sanchez. I'm not going to say too much, but I'm working on a common area at Eagle Pass High School where our students can get together. We can have different events. And I'm thinking it's coming along, but next year I will have the big reveal. I don't want to give too much and surprise everyone. But again, going back to my goal as a principal is just, yes, education, but I want to make sure that our students, our staff, were able to connect again. I don't want the pandemic and COVID-19 to create divisions amongst the students, because I think we have worked very hard as a district and as a school to have an amazing school and a school district. And one thing I will not allow is this pandemic to divide us and to bring us apart. So that's just my 2 cents on that, Mr. Sanchez.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, it is 7:30. And what I will do is I don't want to take up any more of y'all's time. Let me see if I might do one more thing, and then we will wrap it up Tejano Talk style. Let's see. There's too much. I might make a part 2. I might get a different group of people to come in and finish this up. But is there anything else that was kind of, we talked about that. I started with this one. And then segregation, I appreciate it. Oh, I'll just end with this. Judy Heumann was, again, gosh, when she finally met with that politician, it was amazing. She's finishing this big old statement, right? And they had been doing the sit-in, right? And she's like, we will no longer allow the government to oppress disabled individuals. We want the law enforced, and we want no more segregation. We will accept no more discussion of segregation. And I would appreciate it if you would stop shaking your head in agreement. And when I don't think you understand what you're talking about, what we are talking about, that
such a boss moment, just such a boss moment for me. Like, yes.
That was amazing. So, guys, I will leave it at that because I do want to respect y'all's time. I do want to quickly remind everyone that we will have the Tejano Crossroads Media Festival Friday, May 28th, 2021. From this time at that location, you'll tune in from the comfort of your own car, and everyone will be in little bubble groups, packages, and we will see the screen and tune in to the radio, and you can listen to the music and the films and stuff like that. No smoking, no drinking, family fun for all. But other than that, guys, the Tejano Talks, we always wrap up the talk by either saying something that works for you, something that's been making you happy, something that's been getting you through this pandemic, or something that's kind of you're grateful for, and just try to keep it within 30 seconds or something, each of your responses. Okay. I don't know. I know Miss Lizzie and Mr. Cruz have done this before. So would any of you guys want to go first? Mr. Cruz.
First of all, once again, I want to thank you, Mr. Sanchez, for inviting me one more time. And I just want to say that it is an honor to share this forum with every other educator on here, colleagues and friends. But the thing that I want to say is that this pandemic, we've learned a lot from it. And more than anything, I appreciate my students. I don't have them in class, and I know that I strive to make it as close as possible to for them being there. You know what? Talk to them live and, you know, throw a joke in here and there. But the element that's missing, like I think Mr. Huerta stated, is that, hey, you know what? We don't get to interact, but hopefully we'll be back soon and, you know, get right back on track to what we do best, and that's work with our kiddos. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Ms. Lizzie?
Well, thank you for having me again. I was really excited to do the John Leguizamo segment, and this as well was like eye-opening in so many different ways, and being able to interact with like my colleagues and Miss Mauldin, who I love so much ever since I was 16 years old. She's been my, yeah, amazing. Able to share this sphere of just discussion and having just an open forum about things. So just thank you. And, you know, I'm here if you need me again too.
I'll go ahead and go from here. Guys, again, your time, your attention to detail, your willingness to get online, to give us your attention to discuss these can be a little bit, you know, sticky subjects that are difficult to discuss, especially considering the zeitgeist. I'm very grateful for you, Mr. Huerta, for not only participating and doing everything, but for giving us the time and to hearing us out and being a part of the conversation and allowing us to have a conversation with you. I cannot tell you what that means to me as someone who works with you and tries to provide as much value for the students. It gives me a lot of confidence to move forward and continue to try different things to serve the students, to serve the community, and to, most importantly, if just being heard, if that was the only thing that you were doing, and it sounds like at least at the very minimum, that's an amazing thing. So I applaud you, your efforts as a principal, and I also want to thank Mrs. Mauldin so much, because you meant the world to me when I was in high school. You really modified my way of thinking. The atmosphere that you provided was infectious in the best of ways. It was happiness. It was challenging. It was like you treated us with respect and with the attitude of a good, high quality high school student, and you never lowered your standards for anyone. And I thank you for doing that for us.
Thank you.
Hashtag why I'm a teacher.
Hashtag, that's right. Anyone else want to go?
Well, I'll go ahead and go. I want to thank you for inviting me to the EPHS Forum, since I'm the only one no longer working here. For Sergeant who may not know, I did teach in the district for over 40 years. So I know a lot of people. And what I've been thankful for during this pandemic is how many people have reached out to me to make sure that I'm okay. And it shows how, as the sergeant said earlier, how friendly the community is. People do watch out for each other here. And it's probably the main reason why I stayed here even after I retired, because people have been so nice to me here. And so thank you very much for letting me participate.
Awesome. Thank you. Sergeant Leath or Mr. Huerta?
Well, I'm very grateful you have this forum. As you know, we have our own talks a lot. And so it's great to be able to be in a forum where we can talk with other people of like-mindedness. So I'd like to keep it up, and also too, how we can continue to figure out how to get our students more engaged in these type of conversations where they can feel more comfortable and less segregated because of the pandemic.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sergeant Leath.
Well, I mean, I have some visitors. You can say you're good. I have some visitors, my two girls. But first of all, thank you, Mr. Sanchez, for putting this together. I know you're not. This is not the first time you do it. You provide our students with a forum where they can speak freely and they can share their opinion without biases or anyone judging them. So I thank you for that, because that's what we need. And honestly, it is a true honor to be here with colleagues, with friends. Ms. Mauldin, I know you for many years, and you're a great educator, and we'll miss you. And you know that whenever you want to come back, you give us a call. But no, and again, seeing Mr. Cruz, that I've known Mr. Cruz since 2005, Ms. Agosto, when I was their department head, and it's just very special to have this meeting and have this forum. And the one thing that, talking about Eagle Pass, I'm not from Eagle Pass, but I moved here when I was in my junior year of high school, and I left to San Antonio. I lived in Houston, and then I went through a personal hardship. And when I came back to Eagle Pass, the family atmosphere at specifically at Eagle Pass High School and here in Eagle Pass as a community, but the high school, the way they embraced me and they took care of me without knowing, a 25-year-old, it was just amazing. And I told my wife, there's no, I mean, we can go to San Antonio, we can go to Houston where I was, and yes, the money will be better, but I told her, this is where we're staying. Eagle Pass, we're not gonna find a family-like environment in a school setting the way I experienced in Eagle Pass. So it is, I'm blessed to be in this district. I'm blessed to be in this school and to work with such amazing people like you. And like I said, this pandemic, the only thing it did for me, and obviously I think it put everything in perspective. You saw what I'm all about, my girls, and they're my fuel and my wife, and that's what we keep going. And our education, that pandemic, like I mentioned it earlier, this is not going to stop educators. It's not going to stop principals from doing what's best for our kiddos. And the only thing it did is it opened our eyes to technology. Look, I'm speaking to you. I'm not even shy in speaking on the computer. So bring on Google Classroom, bring on Zoom, and whatever else it takes. But we're going to get these kids ready, and we're going to be A-okay. And this is one of them. Say hi, Napola. But no, thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Thank you, everyone. God bless every single one of you. God bless all of your families. And anything that I can do as a principal, as a friend, I'm a phone call away.
Appreciate all y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording, and then we can.
The sergeant?
Oh, you had already done, right? 10 years, right, Sergeant Leath? See, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.